How's it going, everybody? It's Man Tomorrow here. I want to thank you guys for coming through on this Sunday night. Nagone, what's going on, man?
Hey, how you doing, MOT?
I'm doing all right, man. Let's start this thing off with a story of me almost dying in the exact same situation that happened in the Potomac River. All right, we was doing a joint training exercise. We took off at Buckley Air Force Base. We flew from Aurora, Colorado to Colorado Springs to Fort Carson Army Base to pick up, I think, two or three more guys. We ended up at Peterson Air Force Base, which is on the other side of the city, still in Colorado Springs, and we was there. And then we ended up at a airport in Colorado Springs. Now we're all in the plane, people yelling and screaming and all this kind of other stuff, and the planes are being lined up to actually land on the actual runway. So now the pilot, Army pilot, younger dude, was paying attention, and he was having a conversation with air traffic control because they was like, okay, we lined up a single plane to land. It turns out that they lined up four planes to land. And you can clearly see it in the sky that there's four planes. But then again, you're talking to different people and nobody is verifying what is actually happening. So let's say that you we got the clearance and then boom, we started doing maneuvers by the actual runway. If we didn't keep in contact with the person or if the pilot wasn't paying attention, he probably would have ran into the second, the third, or maybe the fourth plane in the same area. The same thing that happened in this situation here. So you got to understand that um, Trump had a federal hiring freeze. Trump fired a whole bunch of people there. And this is not a situation where you need less people. You always need more air traffic control people. Always. And I can almost guarantee you, because it takes a while for these NTSB investigations to happen. Probably take like a year. It isn't as fast as they're trying to make it right now. It's always like anywhere from 18 to 24 months from the actual incident. So the president of the United States knows the names and identity of the individuals who died before it's released to the public. He knows that. Anybody who works in any type of notification service, you know who these people are. There is absolutely no need nor reason to assume that a person is a DEI hire, even if they are a white woman. There are training standards. You have to complete those standards before they just hand you over equipment. It doesn't matter whether it's a gun, whether it's a grenade, or whether it's an actual vehicle, and certainly not a helicopter. It just shows you the level of respect that these people have for the military, and him and the actual vice president going out and saying this person was a DEI hire. Just completely unacceptable. To go.
Yeah, absolutely unbelievable, unbelievable. But this is something that they want to push because they have a narrative that they're trying to push here. So that's why they're doing this. It's obscene. It's terrible. But this is where we're at this very moment in time.
Mike V, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, I think that the rush to conclusion is completely unethical and just completely unprofessional on the administration's behalf. I'm surprised that there was nobody there to really try to clean up what was being said, but it seems like everybody kind of doubled down on this idea that incompetent people who did not look like them were the actual culprits behind this. When in fact they pulled the black boxes from both the plane and the helicopter, and what it showed was something mechanically different. than what was being proposed. And so I'm surprised that this is not actually being the focus of the discussion rather than the DEI part. But that seems to be the narrative that they're running with, that incompetent people who are more melanated were the cause of the accident itself, or the incident itself.
Yeah, what's going on, Renaissance? What you got on it, man?
Hey, what's up? What's up, everyone?
Hey, all
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I'm assuming this is the plane crash in DC
Yes.
and Trump's response. Yeah. Nah, the wild thing is, this might have actually woken some people up. With just how I mean, we know Trump is problematic, but the fact that he went straight to DEI when talking about this, I mean, literally,
Man.
it just like no evidence. On top of that, you don't have an FAA director because they fired them. They've cut back on budgets for people at the FAA, so it's just kind of it actually, I think, actually made him look bad even with a lot of people this week, because as more and more stories come out of who was actually like on this flight, it just comes across as very insensitive. And then on top of that, he said something like, someone asked, "Are you going to the crash site?" And he's like how am I gonna go? Do you want me to go swimming? Like, that was literally his response to one of the reporters. So like, I think he actually like may have hurt himself this week with just his response. And it's only week one, and I think it's already starting to show people of, hey, like, this is what you're gonna have to deal with the next 4 years. Anytime there's any sort of tragedy, is basically a dude doing everything to deflect blame and not lead. And I actually think Pete Buttigieg did a really good job of calling him out. Saying, hey, this dude is basically, instead of lying, he should basically be leading right now and committing to how he's not going to let this happen in the future. But this is what we signed up for. Well, this is what some people signed up for.
Yeah, what we eventually have to go through. So the next item on the docket here is Trump firing people in the FBI who actually investigated him. Dude, this has to be illegal on some level. Now, he's not going to be in office whenever these lawsuits come down after these people are gone, but the government's going to have to pay these people. And there's going to have to be legislation, because there is no way in the world, if you are actually doing your actual job, there is no way in the world, like investigators don't pick and choose who and what they investigate. It comes down the pike. If you're an investigator and you're free, you get the case. Unless there's some serious conflict of interest there, you get the case. You don't get to choose. You have to follow the facts where they lead at. And I think it's a bad idea for him to be actually firing these people who work in the FBI. It just sets a really bad precedent, and this didn't need to happen. I mean, you already got you're gonna have your pick of your FBI head. There's no need to go this step forward and fire the people who actually investigated you. That's just nuts, Mike.
Yeah, it creates a lot of distrust within the system. I'm not sure what they're hoping to gain, because when you really extrapolated out all these people that are going to be fired, and you need to rehire these new people that are going to pledge allegiance to the administration. Let's say it takes 90 days minimum just to do a background check on that person. Then it takes another 3 months to bring them on, and then they have to go through another 6 months of training. You're talking 18 months before you have to bring all these people on. And so you won't see any of these people, these new hires that they bring on after firing of the initial people, until what, 2027 at best. And so, I mean, he's already leaving office at that point. Who are they pledging allegiance to, after 2028? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, if you're talking about going into a if it's him coming to the end of his term. So I'm not sure how this is supposed to really be beneficial to the country.
To go.
Yeah, it's it's just a negative. It's crazy. Like I said, I'm just looking at what's been going on here in this whole first week. I can't really even put this together cogently. This is a lot of this a lot of madness. It's about one of the worst first 2 weeks I've ever seen a president really have, and run the type of game he's running right now. I understand they're trying to push a certain narrative, but it's against many of the people of this country. It's divisive. Very, very bad. MOT. I don't have a lot of words for it.
Yeah, I agree that it's indeed crazy. Renaissance.
Yeah, it's so unprecedented, which is part of what they want, is to just like do things that are just so outside of the realm. Especially, I think they want to do this early on, because I think legislatively, I think that's going to be where they have the hardest part. If you notice, Trump has kind of done a blitz of, basically executive orders, and tariffs, and then really trying to push the boundaries as far as spending. But I think that's all because they know that like actually governing and getting the votes to pass anything is actually going to be quite difficult, in my opinion, just because there's such slim, you got such slim margins in the House, and then I don't even know if they're gonna. It sounds like that McConnell is not for repealing the filibuster, which is kind of surprising to me. Which will, if they ever do, like Dems will, that'll be another egg on the face of Dems if they actually do pull it off, because it'd be like, oh, you didn't repeal the filibuster and you basically let Republicans beat you to it. But regardless, so even then you got what, 2 or 3 votes in the House, and some of these things, especially if you're talking about cuts, like you're basically talking about career-ending votes with some of this stuff, unless they continue to let this madness go on with Elon Musk and Trump basically trying to cut off funds and go in and cut discretionary spending.
Yeah, unfortunately. All right, let's go to this next item on the docket here. Now we're going to spend a lot of time here because there's some changes in my career field, specifically in transportation. And remember when Trump was talking about, oh, he's just going to go just after the criminals when it came to deporting people? It turns out he's going after any group of people he wants to and canceling their actual legal immigration status and to be here. And it's even getting so bad that we have now people literally calling ICE on people because they're speaking Spanish. I mean, we're going that far with it. But I want to show you something that is completely insane. Like, we're at this point now to where we're actually questioning Native Americans about their immigration status. We're getting Native Americans involved in the immigration status.
Unreal. This is unreal.
I don't. I, and they're doing these sweeps. Like I've seen a lot of these F around and find out posts about the guy who was a Trump supporter and his wife was grabbed up from Florida and she was deported. And this guy was a Trump supporter. And it's like, how do these people not understand and guess that they're going to do this stuff to everybody? It's a blanket sweep for a reason. It's meant to cause mass hysteria for a reason. Go.
No, it's designed to definitely, I think, first of all, definitely to create a certain level of fear, but also as far as who was really believing that they were just going after criminals. This, when these people were talking about immigrants and immigration and all that and getting people out of here, they weren't just talking about criminals from that standpoint. They never were. There's this one Republican white woman I saw. I'm forgetting what position she had. I don't know if she's in public office or whatever, but her husband was an immigrant. They came after him. So,
Wow.
so they came after this guy, and so people are sitting here saying, "Well, hold on 1 second. I thought this was supposed to be about criminals." And you see many Latinos and others who were there, complaining, saying they haven't done any crimes and they've been swept up, and you're looking at this. This is just a general sweep. It has nothing to do with criminality. It's moving certain levels of people out of here, numbers of people, and who they are out of here. And that's what this is all about. And no one wants to really look at this for what it is and say what this really is. But yet, he's doing some good. Is he really? Is he really doing some good? Let's look at the numbers. Let's see the economy. Let's see how this thing really shapes up as this thing continues to go on. And this fear he has tends to go on, because we're already starting to see some results in that are not good. But this whole idea of coming after immigrants because they were criminals, it's ridiculous. It's actually untrue. They're just doing whatever they want. And this is a real problem.
Mike.
Yeah, one of the things I find interesting is that they started deporting Puerto Ricans. Now, Puerto Ricans under the law are also hold U.S. citizenship. And so when they started snatching people up, they were looking at people who just spoke Spanish. But even though a Puerto Rican might be visiting the United States, they are still U.S. citizens because Puerto Rico is a Commonwealth of the United States. And so the idea of deporting a Puerto Rican didn't make a whole lot of sense. It was actually a bit of a contradiction, that you're going to send this person back to Puerto Rico, which is a U.S. territory to begin with. I'm not sure who thought that this was a great idea. Puerto Rico did have some conservative supporters on the ground, likely so because there are a lot of folks who may want to be their own state at some point. But I don't think that that's the conservatism that they were looking for, to be sent back from the United States back to Puerto Rico, based on trumped up charges, so to speak, on whether or not their legal status, their status was legitimate or not. And so I find that to be interesting, and it also coalesces with the the Madison Square Garden sort of rally that Trump had in November, where he was, talking about, well, I shouldn't say he was talking about it, but the comedian that he brought on was actually talking about Puerto Rico being a floating island of garbage. But these people ended up getting, snatched up and rounded up in this sort of cabal of deportation. So these sort of things, history is going to speak fairly accurate as to how this administration governed in both its first term and its second term, and I don't think that anybody's going to forget this probably for the next 100 years.
Yeah, Renaissance.
Yeah, I don't. It's unsurprising. Basically, like any civil rights organization should have saw this coming. Because you have not only this guy going after Native Americans, but like you said, people just speaking. Anyone they see speaking Spanish, people just calling ICE, assuming that they're not American. He's even going after Cubans, like the legal status of some of the Cubans that are here, which is funny because they always vote Republican down there in South Florida. And it seems like even they're getting a wake-up call. Haitians as well, because he said he wanted to go after, their legal status. He made the whole comment about people eating pets. So, basically, he's letting people know that, hey, anyone basically can get it at this point. Which, like I said, I don't know what it took, why people didn't see any of this coming, why they were just sort of under this impression that he was going to go after criminals, because I'm just kind of like, how are you going to tell who's a criminal besides, going to, the jails and basically deporting these people? So, it should have just been some common sense at this point. But people didn't read the room.
Yeah, from my career field, transportation. Now you have Sikhs and Arabs and people from Africans and people from the Eastern Bloc of Europe. They come over here, they drive trucks, they buy trucks, they drive trucks for a certain period of time, and then they go back home. Well, you have ICE and at these way stations, and they're pulling people in, and they're impounding people's vehicles, and they're taking them to jail and deporting them under a load. We're talking about people who are never criminals, never ran afoul of the law, have immigration status to actually be here, and this is what's happening to them. And believe it or not, a lot of these people were Trump supporters. Even these dudes were Trump supporters. There's one guy who had all this Trump stuff all over his truck. He's in the back of an ICE vehicle. And it's like, I don't know how you guys get caught up in supporting a person because you think all this stuff is going to happen to every other person but you. I don't get it. And here's the other thing. This could have been done in a way better manner. It could have been done in a way better manner because when these people leave their quote unquote position, those positions don't get filled. They don't get filled right away. You're talking about 4 to 6 months to get people trained, get people on the road, to get people there. And that's just training. And then they got to be on the road probably 2 years before anybody will insure them. So if you're taking all of these personnel off the road that has done nothing, okay, for me, the shipping rates are going to go up. But the economy is going to go down because you're taking all these people out in the marketplace with nobody to replace them with. And that also go for food service workers as well. Like people are not in line trying to get these jobs. And it's like you could have done this stuff 6 months. You could have had a mass, training that you could have funded state by state before you did this. No, they just walked in and just started removing these people. They wasn't even trying to refill these jobs with personnel who are trained or anything else. Now you're talking about planting season is next month. Next month. And I know these more dominant society personnel are not going to be out there planting this stuff. You see the Trump sign with "Si habla español" all over the country. They're starting to roll out all over the country. And they're worried about immigrants being here. And I'm like, okay, all right, you're going to get a new group of people to be here, but those group of people are not going to have any type of protections from the federal government. Who's going to want to come over here and work if they know they're going to be mistreated? Like people just don't even understand the long-term ramifications of what's going on here. To go.
No, they don't particularly care. And I understand these guys are very short-sighted in what they're doing, but and I guess they'll figure, hey, we can turn this around anytime we want. I figure that maybe that's what they're thinking. I'm not really sure. I just know what's going on currently. They're not thinking long term. They're making some very foolish short term moves. They did say they were going to be doing this kind of craziness, so they are doing it. But these are the consequences, and I don't think we're going to see very good results coming from this.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing how this impacts the tech industry as they deal with H-1B visas in regards to some of the layoffs that have been happening. I saw IBM has a massive layoff this weekend. Um, what are you going to do with all these people? Because if you have an H-1B visa and you get laid off, you have like 31 days to go find another job where you have to leave. And so, what
Yeah.
are you going to do with all these people who are unemployed now? That are probably likely viable candidates for other roles, but if they can't find anything in the next 31 days, I know black men in the tech sector who haven't worked in 6 to 9 months since being laid off. And so if they can't find a role in the next 31 days, you're going to deport all these people. I think that that's a bit of a dubious suggestion and process to go through, and you're losing a lot of human capital. Is basically what I'm saying here. So I think I think the short and long term of all of this is that the loss of brain and human capital is going to be uh, very impactful on the economy. I know a lot of tech companies don't really do their fiscal until maybe May, June, or July, and you know when the reports come out, yeah, it looks good, but when they need help, it's going to be vastly difficult to bring people on because you've already gotten rid of DEI. So the idea of bringing black people on, specifically black men, is out of the question. And now these brown folks are going to be leaving as well. I don't see how this is a net positive for the economy.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, if anything, it's going to make everything go up. Um, Empress Sports Channel, thanks for the 4.99 super chat. I don't get the praise of illegal immigration. Those immigrants will be back once the economy is affected. Yeah, they're just going to cycle more and different people through the immigration process. That's all it is. Like for me, the bigger problem is building an economy or allowing people to go into fields where they actually need immigrant help to run their actual organizations. So you can get to run your organization with a free workforce and you want to kick them out the country the moment that you're done with them. I'm like, did we not learn about history? They wanted to kick us out of here after the Civil War. It just turned out it was going to be a way more expensive process to get us all the hell up out of here and put us on a boat and sell us over to Africa. And it's like, we're still talking about the history of just trying to use people and chuck them once you're done. Like, I don't understand that. And it's like from personnel who are not trying to do better as well. So we're trying to protect the land of opportunity from people who are already in the country who don't want to take advantage of that opportunity, which I think is nuts. And you see a lot of black men and black people in general who's trying to praise these deportations. And I think that's way out of line, bro. Like people would do the same thing to you in a heartbeat. The same thing. I don't get black people's praise of this government overreach when we've been the victim of government overreach even today. You get pulled over for no reason, get detained for no reason. You got to prove that you're innocent after being told that you're guilty by somebody, right? I just don't understand it, and I don't have any respect for people who try to do all of that stupid stuff. I just don't want nothing to do with them. I deal with working class people who actually want to work. I don't care about people who sit around and don't do anything but complain about immigrants. You just scapegoating these people for no reason. To go.
that's, that's absolutely true. That's an excellent statement on that. Um, yeah, we will guilty. We are victims of this on a regular and consistent basis. I guess some will want to see, I guess, others victimized and enjoy it as well. What a lot of people don't really understand is the more and harder they come down on these people like that, the more they're going to look to come down on you as well. So a lot of us don't understand it. We are still a major target in this. So this does not get us out of that or put the onus on someone else. This will further target you. And then when they try to figure out ways of potentially making you or us a non-citizen, they will certainly look to vigorously uh, approach that as well. So we have to very much keep our eyes on this, and not take this lightly or as any kind of joke at all. This is very serious, and we are at the bottom line, the target. And a lot of people don't want to believe that. They don't want to listen to that, but that's exactly what that is. I hope you understand that.
Yeah, Mike.
I think you already asked me.
Oh, okay. Renaissance.
Yeah. No, I think you all hit it pretty hit the nail on the head. it doesn't make sense. Because I don't see why you even cycle people through like back and forth. It makes no sense. Nobody really wants to do these jobs. People claiming that, oh, if you raise the pay, that I don't see people wanting to go out here and do these jobs for, $20 an hour, $25 an hour. I mean, this is this is hot, back-breaking work. Got to be up at the crack of dawn, and like you can't tell me in the age of everybody wanting to be a YouTuber that's what people are aspiring to do, and that's what they're gonna go and do, even if it's paying. I'll even put it up $30 an hour. I don't see it.
And the whole reason why they're using immigrant labor is because they don't want to pay people appropriately for the job. So, what's the comment? Like, what is this about?
I mean, at least if it's the immigrants, they can at least take the money and go back home, and your dollar goes a lot further. So for them, it actually makes some viable sense of, hey, you're making pretty good money that you can send home, and you don't have to be like very very highly skilled. So it makes a lot more sense to them. So it's kind of a win-win versus all of a sudden everyone has a problem with immigrants and quote unquote jobs being missing.
Yeah, but look at this angle though. They're talking about not enforcing any of the labor rules or anything else during the Trump administration. So these people could come over here into a situation where they're going to be pretty more abused than they ever were before with these new personnel that's coming over here. So I'm not sure how that's an actual rolling out the red carpet by telling people that you're not going to be protected from any workplace violations. Very little that there is under a 1099 situation. I don't see how that's going to be uh, a rolling out of the red carpet for that. I just don't understand how that works. So let's go to the next thing on this list here, and probably the final thing because this thing gets real expansive. Trump is having these tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China. It's going to affect a lot of products, and I don't think people understand how this tariff thing works. Once you lose your position, you don't get it back. Like when we had the last trade war, once Trump left office, we didn't get that stuff back under Biden. Once you start breaking contracts, people just organize without you. Like, I don't understand the idea that we need to go to Canada, Mexico, and China for tariffs. These people are supposed to be allies on some level. I don't get why on earth would you want to raise the cost of goods knowing that people are being hurt right now by the cost of everything with shrinkflation and greedflation. You're going to add this extra layer of stuff on here. You know that it's wintertime. You know there's hardly any place in the United States that grows crops that feeds the rest of the country. You know that we get tomatoes, avocados, a lot of vegetables from Mexico. To increase prices by 25% on those items is insane. This is unneeded, and we don't get anything out of this. American companies don't get anything out of this. To go.
Insane. These prices going to go up. You're already looking at in certain fields already in California in some places, crops are not being properly harvested at the stage. They don't have the personnel to go in there and do it. So we're going to be looking at with that concomitant price rises. So all of this, we want to bring them in because of price of eggs and all the stuff at the grocery store and the price of vegetables or whatever. Forget about it. You're going to be looking at this going up quite a bit. These tariffs are going to come back. They're going to hit you in the automotive industry and a lot of the places. It's going to reverberate around quite heavily. And who are you going to blame for that when that goes on? When that starts happening? who's going to be blamed for it? I mean, you have to sit down and look at what's really going on currently, and this is this is a policy that this guy's putting in place that is just not good for us at the larger, kind of macro level. So we're going to have to watch this very closely. I don't see much good coming out of this as well. And this is what we've got going on. This is what we've got, a tariff trade war now going on between Canada, United States, Mexico, critical players in the same region, same continent, sharing the same borders. This is the kind of game that's going on right now. If anybody can make any sense out of this, please, I would definitely like to hear its reasoning.
Mike.
You know what's interesting about this is that Trump put the USMCA in place in July 2020. This was his darling. So the idea that Canada and Mexico were getting over on the United States like a fat cat or a fat rat in a cheese factory didn't make a whole lot of sense, since it was his plan to begin with. He used the USMCA to replace NAFTA, which was in place before. He got into office, and then he replaced it when he did get into the office in his first term. So how did he come to the conclusion that Canada and Mexico were getting over on him? Does not make a whole lot of sense, especially for the fact that his name is written on the USMCA. It was supposed to be a good deal that he brought up, and that he cultivated for himself. It was supposed to renegotiate the terms. Now he's pretending as if, Canada is somehow getting over on him, and Mexico is getting over, and these avocados, like, they're just getting in here just so easily and stuff. The idea here is to intimidate both of your allies. But if you intimidate your allies, what does that mean to your adversaries? Who?
And the rest of your allies too.
Yeah. Who needs enemies if you treat your friends like this? So, I think that this is going to burn a lot of bridges for the United States as a whole, because Canada would never put itself in a position where they have to compromise, and neither will Mexico. And so I don't see how this was beneficial at all. 1 in 6 houses are built using Canadian lumber.
Yes.
Canada supplies a lot of Democrat states with energy, such as oil, gas, as well as hydro powered dam based power, so which is clean power. That goes to New York, that goes to Maine, that's Susan Collins' area, that's Governor Hochul's area, and then you're also talking about Minnesota. A lot of Canadians come to Minnesota and go to that big mall out there because it's supposed to be, this world of a mall that no other state has, and they're very close to it. And now they're very apprehensive about coming to the United States because it's going to be you know very uncertain. There's a lot of uncertainty in dealing with the United States at that point. Why come across the border if you think that something negative could happen to you and after Tuesday? And so the United States is basically, we don't know who's really running the government at this point. We know who's in the seat, but we don't understand what the whole entire end game is behind this.
Yeah, I agree. Renaissance.
Yeah. Now I think you hit the nail on the head in MOT when you said, "Hey, these things." We saw this with the last administration. You saw. There were stories out there. You saw actually suicides in places like Iowa because small family farms basically went belly up because of these tariffs with China, and these other countries went to other places to get the goods they were buying from the States, and they didn't come back. And that's why I think people miss in all this is that, hey, once you do that, people go find an alternative, and it's like, why would I come back to someone who put tariffs on for no reason other than just like, just being stupid and being arrogant. So this is something that could permanently hurt the economy as a whole, which is ironic because you know, everyone's been saying, oh, they trust Trump with the economy and he's a businessman and this, and it's just like the guy's doing everything that economists are saying you shouldn't be doing. You clearly see markets are rattled by this. We'll see. The only thing is that will be interesting to see is there something that stops and puts the brakes on this in the sense of Trump? Because if you remember, the tariffs were supposed to start yesterday on Saturday, but he pushed them to Tuesday. So some people are saying that that's basically trying to act as an off ramp, you know, to basically, you know, make this a whole big bluff. At least when you come to, you know, Mexico and Canada, because you kind of saw the same thing with, I believe it was Colombia, when they, he was basically saying, the president said, hey, they're not accepting any migrant flights, any
deportation flights.
Yeah, and basically what wasn't reported in the media was, you know, basically the Colombian president, Trump said tariffs, the Colombian president retaliated, and he basically told them, hey, you can't bring them over on military planes. You have to basically treat these people with some level of humanity and civility, which Trump coalesced to, and then that's when they said they would agree to accept people. So, you know, this whole, you know, Trump is notorious for this. Same thing with the whole border wall. Like, yeah, I'm gonna get a border wall and Mexico is gonna pay for it. We see where that really went.
Yeah. I mean, I do a lot of lumber, steel. All that stuff comes from China, and Canada, and there are, you know, places that allow you to clear cut, like they're clear cut in Mississippi and Louisiana and Arkansas, but it is pales in comparison to what is being brought in at the port. And remember how high housing prices are right now, and you want to add 10% if it's China and 25% if it's Mexico or Canada to that already, when people already can't afford a house already. This is nuts. And it's like, you would think there was some type of terrorist attack or something that brought this on. No, he just did it because he didn't learn his lesson from the campaign trail when he was told specifically that placing tariffs would cost this many millions of dollars. It would cost this many amount of jobs. And the guy was like, we're going to do tariffs. And the people who actually are trying to celebrate or trying to find reasons that they've won for this guy doing all this stuff, this is a lose-lose for everybody.
You know, people don't even understand that you got cars being manufactured in Mexico right now. People are not aware of it, and the car parts that are going to come back and are going to be taxed.
They closed down the plants in Ohio and Michigan and Kentucky, and now this stuff comes from Mexico back into the country. I'm talking about Toyota, Nissan, everybody does it.
Exactly, and tariffs are going to be placed on that as well. I mean, you have to sit down and think just how retarded some of this really, really is, and what are these guys really looking at? That's why it's shocking to see some of this madness that we see currently going on. But anyway, I'm sorry, RM, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say the wild thing is too, you have economists on both sides. Like, no economist is sitting here saying this is a good thing. Like, all of them are pretty much in unison saying this is going to be bad. Trade wars, nobody wins, and it just ends up hurting the country and the economy. So, I mean, Trump knows this, because if you look at the gas, he basically said it was going to be 25% on everything Canadian goods, and then he said 10% on gas because he didn't want the people to fill it there. So even he acknowledges with that hey, this is going to cause prices to go up, and there is some, hey, they're worried about blowback, because if gas goes up 25%, like,
oh man, 75 cents.
That's shipping. That's what people are paying at the pump, driving in to work. People are going to be pissed about that.
It's going to be way higher than 25%. Trust me. because that 25% is in every part of that process, like you said. Oh my God. All right. So for the last thing here, well, one of the last things here for this fork in the road for federal workers. Now he's not doing this for the frontline actual employees that are protected by the union. He's actually doing this a lot of this stuff for the actual management class of the federal government because most of the management class of the federal government is not covered under the union and they can get rid of you at any time that they want to. So this is where these leverage buyouts are being offered at. So once you have control over the managerial aspect of the actual organization, he thinks that he's going to be able to force change from that. But I'm like, but you're still dealing with a union though. And trying to replace these people with loyalists, it's just a mess. Like a couple friends of mine is kind of like in their 19th year. One retires in June and another retires in November, and they were like, "Why on earth would they take like a leverage buyout when they got a pension that they're about to get that they've been working for since they got out of the Air Force? It doesn't make any sense." And both of these people are Trump supporters. I just don't get how come these people don't see that it's you too. They want to cut the government and replace them with employees. And guess what? Once you civilianize or privatize something, the cost of it goes up. The benefits go down. The pay goes down every time. I don't understand how people don't get this. We're like so far into this and people don't understand that. Go.
Absolute madness. And then on top of that, you're trying to say you want to, well, we're going to give, we're going to give you a buyout. It's Congress that determines how that money will go to those employees and how that will be spent. That is something that will have to go down through Congress. He can't even do that. So he'll let these people go. He can't structure that either. So he's out here trying to let people go, crash down, cut down the government, can't replace them, can't set up the kind of packages that he's talking about. It's absolute madness. But this is him overreaching, trying to control the shape of the government and making these kind of moves. It's it's hard to well, this is not hard to believe. I mean, he was saying that this is something that they were actually going to try to do, and that's what they're doing. But this is not going to be a very good plan in getting rid of these people, getting rid of them, many of them, then have to replace them at a lower rate and so forth. Who else are you going to put in there? Since you're going to get rid of most of these people, many of them who are going to be black folks and others, you plan to replace them with whom? These your own people. Is that it? Well, what's this plan? How is this really supposed to really work? How are we going to get this really going? I mean, it's just uh I've been trying to make sense out of a lot of this, and it's difficult.
Mike.
Yeah, the clearing out of, like some of these non-protected people all comes from, low hanging fruit for one, but two, it also comes from Doge, which is the Department of Government Efficiencies run by Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Um, there's this idea that if you just get rid of all this head count, if you just start automating things and you start, adding AI here and a few cloud computing there and Starlink and things like that, that it'll make government work more efficiently. That's the problem between someone who works in the private sector and versus working in government. There's a bureaucratic structure in place for a reason. Um, Things actually work more efficiently with the bureaucracy than it does not. In corporate America, things work the way that they work because they have to. They have to be, you know, they have to abide by the shareholders and whoever the venture capitalists are that that pay the bills. But when you start talking about government, every country has this issue. Whether you're talking about the European Union, you're talking about Canada, you're talking about all of America's allies, all have bureaucratic structures in place, including Japan. things are designed for a reason to work the way that they work. Um, because that's just the best way for government to work, is when you start having these sort of checkpoints in place, so that you don't have all of this sort of overlap happening. You have different branches of the military. If Elon thinks that getting rid of the F-35 and replacing it with, like Tesla fighter jets or something like that that are autonomous, that just isn't going to happen. Okay. You have pilots, you train pilots, you spent a lot of money training them, you have simulators, you have logistics in place. It's a bureaucracy for a reason. And it's not going to change just because you have some kind of um, quick idea in your head of how to make government more efficient. There are some areas where you can make government more efficient, like getting rid of toll booths and things like that, and then just charging people by license plate and using easy passes. That is a way of transformation, digital transformation for the government. But it does not mean that you just start laying people off. The people that used to do a lot of your landscaping, for the highways and whatnot. Um, in the wintertime, you don't lay them off. They start doing snow plowing, things like that, salting the roads, and repairing equipment. There's ways that you can actually make government more efficient without getting rid of people. Is basically what I'm saying. I think that when you come from the private sector, it's a little bit more difficult to understand how government works. So
Yeah, I mean, because government has to operate in the public good, and private corporations don't understand the public good. They don't care about that. They care about maximizing money to be made, and if they have to fold a whole bunch of things into one another, that's how they think. You can't run government like that. No, Renaissance.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. Um, yeah, this whole Doge thing, you know, I don't see how any of this is legal. I don't see how, like, there have not been numerous lawsuits about people accessing systems or talking about, diverting spending to different ways, because it the line item veto was deemed unconstitutional for the president,
Yes.
because they said it was legislative authority. Now you're going to somehow say that the president or people in his administration, in the administrative state, now have the ability to determine funding that Congress sets. Which,
Unelected,
yes,
unconfirmed people.
and here's the other thing: it doesn't make sense when you think about it. The court's rulings, when you look at like the Chevron doctrine, that was taking power out of the administrative state and actually putting it in the court's hands. So that's the other thing that's going to be weird. It doesn't really even make sense. Is, oh, okay, the administrative state is now these people that Trump is trying to dismantle, or trying to make all these changes to regulations. But now they literally just had a ruling that came out before he became president that a lot of this stuff will be determined by the courts. So that will be the interesting thing to go forward, is how do you reconcile this, what they're trying to do, coupled with the fact that when you think about it, that these people don't want to lose their power either. I mean, Congress does not want to lose its ability to determine funding. I mean, what's the point of being in Congress if you could just pass something and the president could just, in his administration, can just divert all the funding? So it's crazy.
Yeah. So for the last item on this list, and something that's probably more important than everything else on this list, what's this spending freeze that actually Trump instituted out of whole cloth, even though all this money has already been appropriated already. I mean, this affected probably so many different things that even he didn't even know that this stuff affected that many things. And he had to, of course, the actual any judge was going to overturn it, but the fact that he even thought that he can get away with this is just crazy. I mean, there is too much stuff tied to that money to where you think you can just walk in and do an overall spending freeze. See, this is the problem with the private sector versus the government. Don't understand how anything works. Walk in with a nuclear weapon trying to kill a fly. Next thing you know, the whole city's gone because you want to get something done. You want the respect of people, but the only way you can be able to communicate with people is by doing bad things that piss everybody off. And that's not a way to get any type of respect anywhere. It's just too many organizations, too much, and this is going to be a precursor to what he's actually going to have in his budget coming the next fiscal year. So people better watch out because the judiciary stopped him this time. The judiciary is not going to be able to stop things that they actually negotiate for and actually pass this legislation the next year around. So they better watch out. Go.
Yes, well, that was once again another overreach by the president. Didn't quite understand that there are certain checks and balances that are already in place, and certainly these monies have already been allocated and spent and ratified by Congress, as we know. So that's going to have to be done also with this new budget. They're going to have to present their budget and then have that ratified by Congress as well, which I think they're going to run into some potential issues with too. But this definitely was an overreach and an insight. No question as to what the next budget will be when they try to bring that up and see what they're going to cut. But you do see where they're trying to go with this, and what they're trying to do. Even though they were way out of line here, it gives you a good idea as to where they're actually going to try to go with this. So folks better keep their eyes open and and take a look, because this will be coming up at the end of the year and going into fiscal 2026. It's on and popping. So I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, he was definitely hampered. And yes, I believe that they did have an idea that they could not maybe do this, but he tried it anyway. All right.
All right, Renaissance.
Yeah, my bad. No, like I said, we'll see with this amendment. Well, there is no we'll see. It's already been a chaotic 2 weeks. It's just going to be where's the breaking point and where's the floor with all of these people. Because just stuff they're going, you've got legality issues. You've got things that just don't make any absolute sense. And like I said, I think this is still part of the blitzkrieg early on. I don't think they've gotten to the hard work yet. The other thing is MAGA going to fracture?
Man,
Steve Bannon has already waged war, and that whole wing of the party has waged war on the oligarchs. To Elon Musk, he said, Bannon said he was going to have, Musk out of the White House within, inauguration day. So he's got a wing of people who are actively working to get him out. So does it implode? How far does it go as far as Trump and his overreach? So I just say buckle up, everyone.
I mean, who'd have thought all these small government conservatives were doing all this government overreach within the first 2 weeks of having an administration? It's almost like this small government thing was just all talk. All talk. Like, no, they love big government, especially when it comes to screwing people over. It doesn't make any sense. And you have to realize you have a lot of black men who's trying to sit on the sidelines, who's trying to find their way to try to take credit for the things that are being done during this administration. And it's like, dude, you cannot be trying to attach yourself to this thing that is going to be going down in flames. Again, we got 4 years of this. 4 years. What people do not understand out of people on the left, it is not our job. It's the media's job to educate you on what has happened and what will happen. Yes, these tech CEO, these tech companies are pretty much running negative SEO. You probably can't even find out this information unless you're trying to find it out all at the same time. A lot of this stuff you got to look very hard to go find out what's happening in the administration. You got to keep up with it like that and save links. There is no place that's going to give you a point by point thing of what's happening in the administration. That stuff's out the window. They just want you to wake up in another world where you just feel overwhelmed and there's nothing that you can be able to do. And the media is trying to make the truth, and the arbiter of truth is something like an advertisable position that somebody has to pay for and organize around. Like, no, this is their job to inform people about things, about these tariffs. If you wouldn't have known better, state-run media is making it look like, hey, it's okay. It's only okay, and there really ain't no consequences. Again, no conservative economists are coming out and saying that this stuff is okay. There's no conservative legal scholars who are coming out and saying that all this spending freeze and all this stuff is okay. So all this stuff is just coming out of nowhere for some reason. So you got any last words, Renaissance?
No, I'm good. Like I said, we buckle up, folks. Every day is just kind of like you got to take it day by day, see what stupid stuff this dude did today, and then basically after the day's over, kind of sit down and formalize, strategize, and rethink whatever strategy you got going forward for how you get through the next few years. That's the only way I really know how to tell you to do it, because it's so erratic and so all over the place at this point. And even Republicans, I saw something online where I think it was like Peggy Noonan or someone basically said that they had talked to Republicans off the record, and these people just look completely demoralized already 2 weeks in. I'm like, yeah, that's what you all have signed up for, and you haven't even approved or appointed his entire cabinet. So it only gets crazy.
Oh yeah. Tony, go. Got any last words before we get up out of here?
Nah, I pretty much have to look at it from the standpoint of how everyone else is here is kind of looking at it. This is looking kind of crazy, and boy, we're going to be in for a very very rough ride. So I do believe we have to buckle in and but the key of this also is we need to stay informed. Stay properly informed. That's very important, and look at where the opportunities are and so forth, and follow that closely. But stay informed. Stay critically informed. Anyway, thank you very much, MOT, for inviting me up.
All right, and for everybody else out there, you have to understand this is a left-right thing. There are no libertarians. There are no third parties. There's none of that stuff. And what Trump is doing is not Trump policies. It's Republican policies that they've always wanted to do. They just never had the stomach to actually do it and deal with the consequences. So you may think that these things are actually new things. Like, no, these were always bad ideas that came up with by the Heritage Foundation. They just never found somebody dumb enough to come out here and actually implement all these things and not care about the consequences of it at all. So these people who actually didn't want women in charge or transgendered in sports or immigrants over here taking jobs that they're not trying to get, it's time for you to get your ass out there and organize with these people. You don't try to turn the conversation back to talking about women. Remember, you wanted this. So now you have to get your ass out there and organize with these people. And with that said, I want to thank you guys for coming through. It is your job to get informed, remain informed, and be involved with the actual process itself. So with that said, I want to thank you guys for coming through. I'm the man tomorrow. You guys have a really nice rest of y'all night. Peace.